Hi there, how was your Christmas day? Welcome to the first ever Robbie with an IE holiday special. 'Tis the season to be jolly with the people you love and reflect upon the year that just passed. And as such, I prepared a special Christmassy game to take a look at today. Until Dawn. Were you expecting Spider-Man Miles Morales? And I know you might be thinking, this isn't a Christmas game, but look, it's got snow in it, so it counts. And to be honest, there really aren't too many Christmas games out there, so I'm doing my best, okay? Until Dawn was an earlier PlayStation 4 exclusive, and as such, it really pushed to show off the hardware with at the time revolutionary graphics and a few controller-based gimmicks chucked in here and there. At the time, it was genuinely well received and was decently popular to play online thanks to it releasing slap bang in the middle of the Telltale craze. But now, almost 8 years after its release, it's not really spoken about as much as the other PS4 exclusives such as Spider-Man and God of War, which I think is such a genuine shame. I do have quite a soft spot for this game, and I also think that it's just really stinking good. And so I've made it my New Year's resolution to bring this game back into the spotlight. Today we're gonna have a rather spirited look back to see if Until Dawn holds up. The story of Until Dawn is rather interesting thanks to this being a choose-your-own adventure like The Walking Dead, but unlike The Walking Dead, while playing through this game I actually found myself feeling the consequences of my actions. If you haven't seen my Walking Dead review, please do, but one of my biggest issues with that game was how often it felt like your choices just didn't matter. Sure, you could save that guy, but will it matter? Or will they just hang around doing nothing for the rest of the game? And while that problem can still pop up here from time to time, especially with characters like Matt and Jess, for the most part if someone dies because of your choice, then you do actually end up missing out on some neat character moments later on. And you absolutely will feel for a character death because the characters in this game are really nicely fleshed out. To begin with, they're presented as archetypes you see everywhere in the horror genre: the meathead, the everyman, the funny guy, the hot girl, the last girl, the stuck-up girl, but they all go beyond the cliches they're first presented as. Two of my personal favourite examples of this being Emily and Mike. Emily is first presented as the stuck-up, self-centered girl of the group, and for the first half of the game, that's what she is. She relies on manipulation and getting other people to do stuff for her in order to get by, but as the game goes on and she is separated from her precious boy toy Matt, she learns to take care of herself and actually becomes quite the badass. And then we have Mike. For the first 2 or 3 episodes, he's portrayed as a typical himbo, but as the story progresses, so does his character, and he shows that not only is he a lot more than just a pretty face, he's also capable, intelligent, and decently funny.
Okay. I'm gonna open the door. You ready? You ready? Just do it already. Whoever it is probably gone by now. Unless you want me to take the gun. No. I think that's less good.
And it's not just these two, because other characters such as Sam, Ashley, and Chris all had their own subplots and development take place throughout the game, although I will say not every character had their complete fair dues. It definitely feels like a handful of characters were just flat out forgotten by the writers. This is most apparent with Matt and Jess, and to be honest, both of their inclusions feel like they're only to serve other better characters, making them feel more like props than actual people. Jess is a pretty consistent character for the first 3 episodes, but if she isn't dead by episode 4, she completely pieces out, I kid you not, until the final episode. To put that into perspective, there are 10 episodes here, meaning that she's in 4 of those 10 if she's left alive. And by then, what's even the point of keeping her around? Keeping her alive and kicking was completely unnecessary, as the last time we saw her before a miraculous reappearance was this. You could have just had that be it. There was no reason for her to come back a whole 6 episodes later. And then you have Matt. If you don't kill him before roughly episode 5, he is just absent until, yet again, the final episode. And the last time we see him before he re-emerges, he's falling inside a watchtower, meaning you could have just had that be the character's definitive end. Just show him speared on debris or at the bottom of a pit or anything other than shoehorning him in back later. I get that the game likes to push for you to keep people alive, and I get it, it's a fun incentive to keep playing, but 1 or 2 concrete, unavoidable deaths, not counting the Washington sisters by the way, would have really made the situation feel that more actually dangerous. Cause as it is, you can get through the game with everyone surviving, and while sure a lot of messed up stuff happened, it really doesn't feel like a lot of genuine danger passed if everyone makes it to the final episode all hunky-dory. And while we're on the topic of episodes, let's talk about that, because like, why? I honestly have no freaking clue why this game is split up into separate episodes, it just feels kind of unnecessary. I mean, if this was a Telltale deal where they released episodes over a period of time, it would make sense, but like, they didn't. They even include a little last time on Until Dawn segment at the beginning of each episode, which makes even less sense considering how short this game is. I literally beat it in 1 sitting. I doubt I'm gonna have forgotten what happened over the last half hour. And at that point, these multiple minute long segments every half hour are just annoying as all hell. Nitpicks aside though, I really like the story. It's full of twists and turns and really puts an emphasis on playing out like a classic horror film. The game opens on a group of friends venturing up Washington Mountain to a lovely lodge. That sounded like a Fortnite location. The group of friends consists of Sam, Ashley, Emily, Jess, Chris, Matt, Mike and Josh. This is where they all intend to spend the weekend, although due to the death of Hannah and Beth Washington caused by a cruel prank gone wrong the year prior, everyone's just a little bit on edge. This hits especially hard for Josh Washington, the brother of the sisters and a part of the family that own the mountain. Thanks to this, there's a bit of tension in the air, and in order to defuse an already breaking out fight, the group splits into three. Mike and Jess, who are going to a smaller, secluded cabin for some alone time, wink wink nudge nudge, Matt and Emily, who double back on themselves because Emily lost one of her bags to the oath, and Sam, Josh, Chris and Ashley, who all hang back at the lodge. Things start to go wrong, however, when Josh, Chris and Ashley voodoo the dead sisters, Jess gets Freddy Kruegered through a window, and Matt is putting up with Emily. Things don't get any better on account of Ashley and Chris being knocked out by some creep in overalls and Mike stumbling upon some other level of Tim Burton out in the woods. Chris wakes up to find Ashley and Josh missing, only to find them out in the woods auditioning for Saw. It's up to Chris to choose who gets to live and who gets sawed in half. I chose Ashley and she was set free, but Josh, well... Thankfully enough, Chris and Ashley run into Emily and Matt out in the woods, warn them of everything that's been going on, and then they decide to split up again because this is a horror game after all. Meanwhile, Sam is put to sleep by the overall creep and Mike is still exploring Big Boo's haunt. Meanwhile, Emily and Matt go over to this big radio tower thingy to signal for rescue, but it kinda sorta falls down, leaving Emily hanging above a ravine, and my version of Matt, well... While this is happening, Chris and Ashley are searching for Sam when they stumble onto the lodge's secret basement area, which is basically just a whole hotel. Down there, they do actually find Sam. And then overall creep finds them. When they both wake up, they're in another saw trap where they're both tied to chairs with spinning buzzsaws making their way towards them. And the only way out is for Chris to shoot either Ashley or himself. At the same time all this is going on, Mike has stumbled onto Sam, and now that overall creep is distracted, he's able to get her free and escape without error. From here, they both find Chris and Ashley in their predicament, and luckily enough, that gun was a blank, so none of them died, and then... Huh. So that's what the point of the mask is. So it turns out Josh, yes that Josh who's the brother of the two dead girls and got half like a sandwich earlier, is overall creep, and everyone is understandably ticked off given the fact that, oh you know, he made everyone think that they were gonna die and he also maybe killed Jess. They take him up to a little hut in the woods where they leave him and wait in the cabin. And while all this is going on, Emily's still in the mines where she runs into a new creepy old guy, because I guess this is just where they all hang out. Then the creepy old guy throws her down a hole and starts shooting fire at something in the distance, but it's probably nothing. What in the actual Christ is that? Turns out it's not nothing, and not only is it not nothing, but it's also a big bony thing coming out her fast, and she just about manages to home alone herself to safety and make it back to the cabin. And she's not the only one to make it back, because the creepy old geezer is also here, and turns out he actually knows quite a bit about everything that's going on. Turns out that big bony thing that almost got Emily is actually a Wendigo. It's also what got Jess, meaning that Josh didn't kill her after all, and leaving him out in the cold for the Wendigo probably wasn't the greatest idea. So Chris and the old git go out to save Josh, only to not find Josh but a Wendigo instead, and the old man also loses his head and Chris narrowly escapes. That probably could have gone better. They all venture down into the old hotel basement thing where no Wendigo can get to them. Yep, they should all be safe here for the rest of the night until rescue gets here at dawn. Yep, all they have to do is wait here until dawn. Where's Mike going? Turns out Mike isn't too fond of the idea of, you know, staying alive, so he tries to find Josh down in the mines based on a hunch that he has the keys for the cable car so that they can all get out of here. But, like, the basement hotel things seem pretty safe, and rescue's already coming, so why is this at all necessary? Who cares? Mike goes to the mine, but the rest of the group has learnt some dangerous stuff about the Wendigo that Mike needs to know, so better go tell him. So they do, and Sam is split off from the rest of the group. She does, she finds Mike, they find Josh who's tripping balls, they snap him out of it. Josh gets snatched and Sam and Mike have to split. Sam makes it to the lodge, but it's locked, but then Mike shows up, they break a window, then the others show up and they're being tailed by Wendigo because I left them alone for 2 freaking seconds. It's okay, the Wendigo have a fight scene instead of killing us, except for Sam, they still kill Sam. Mike blows them up, a rescue, and it's all over. Merry bloody Christmas, everybody. The story of this game is a fun one at the very least. Characters make stupid choices, there are some fun twists, a few monsters jump out the end. So this really is like a classic horror film. All joking aside, however, there are so many things that I didn't even get to mention, like how the writing, much like the characters, start off crappy and cliche and gets more real as the game goes on. And for a mid-2010s choose-your-own-adventure game, it's handled pretty nicely in a way that for the most part helps it feel like your choices carry real weight. 10 out of 10. Until Dawn doesn't have the biggest world in gaming, hell, you never even leave this mountain, and that's exactly why it's perfect. Thanks to the fact that you spend your time hopping between a small handful of locales, the game successfully makes you feel isolated from the rest of the world. Like you really are stuck on top of this mountain, or if something bad happens, no one would know. On top of this, the game also nails the overall creep factor. The atmosphere built here is phenomenal, and here's a little tip from me for extra bedwetting chances. Play the game alone, in the dark, with headphones on. This is still the holiday special. And hot chocolate to keep you warm and fuzzy inside. You'll have your typical gothic horror movie stuff dotted around everywhere, but there are a few things that'll change depending on your choices. Like, for example, in my therapy session, I said I was scared of clowns, and so later on in the game, a creepy clown appears. Serving not only as a way to give a furthered personal experience, but also as a way to personally screw with each individual player. I also love that thanks to the minimal size of this world, the developers very clearly had to be mindful when it came to what they would put where. Everything is here for a reason, and tells you a little bit about this place's backstory alongside just creeping you the hell out. And that is another reason I love the world of this game. This isn't just some lodge on some mountain with some teenagers, but instead it's all surrounded with lore. And you can find this lore by exploring when given a chance and finding little clues to fill out the backstory, and if that's not your style, then you don't have to. You'll still have a creepy scary game on your hands, but for those who prefer lore, well, it's there. Just another choice, I guess. For my score, I'm gonna go for a 10 out of 10. This is such an enriched and deep world, and it just goes to show that you don't need some huge fancy thing to be good, you just need to know what's necessary. Time for some deja vu, because just like in The Walking Dead, the gameplay here really leaves a lot to be desired, meaning it will also make for a short segment in my video, which means watch time is going to be down and YouTube will hate me for the next month. Holiday special. Okay, fine. I get it. It's Christmas and I'm being too analytic, so I guess I'll just sink to a new low and whip off Nostalgia Critic. From here on in, I'll only speak in rhythm, because I guess that's close enough to Christmas tradition. Thanks to Until Dawn being a choose-your-own adventure, it has the tendency to play out like a lecture. Don't get me wrong, I like making my choices, but by the end I was really tired of hearing the characters' voices. It's honestly so obscene how most of this game plays out like a cutscene. This is a video game, you say, and yet I notice a shocking lack of actual gameplay. There's barely any variety to break up the tension, and that's without mention of the slogging repetition. I hate to sound cliche, but this game can really feel like a walking simulator. So many times I wanted to just stop playing and put it off until later. And if walking through endless hallways sounds boring, at least you're exploring without the game forcing endless QTEs onto you this Christmas morning. The amount of times the game substitutes actual gameplay with quick time events I couldn't count on one hand, and it only added to my struggle to keep playing and withstand. But I like to look on the bright side, and outside of the repetition you might find the right kind of gameplay. Yes, I'm talking about the choice making, the only interesting thing breaking the aching gameplay loop this game has been embracing. I won't lie, when it comes to Telltale copies, this is one of the few that feels by far the least sloppy. So many of your choices feel like they have actual effect. To be honest, it feels kind of perfect, but the fact of the matter is, the rest of this game can drag on for years. And I hate to go on, I really don't mean to ramble, but this is what it felt like for me trudging through this game's brambles. A game with a runtime of about 8 hours according to Google really shouldn't feel as brutal, and to make the situation worse, that's really all we have to converse. I mean, I guess we haven't spoken about the collectibles that are dotted here and there, but that's so simple and low effort, I can barely bring myself to care. The areas you explore are likely decorative clues that tell you about the lore, alongside these weird little totem thingies that tell you about what's in store. But if I'm being honest, this adds very little to the actual gameplay. You walk up to them, press X, and there's nothing left to say. I wish I could say there's more beyond QTEs, collectibles, choices, and walking, but there really is nothing left to keep me talking. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to go for a 6 out of 10, where it's good, but lack of substance I just can't defend. And I'm done with the rhyming. I know it's been lit, but I've had enough of this load of bullshit. With Until Dawn being an early PS4 game and all, it was designed to really push for hardware and show off what it was capable of. This resulted not only in my PS4 sounding like a frickin' jet engine whenever I tried to play it, but also in a genuinely stunning game. Sure, it's not the most breathtaking, but typically when a game goes for a realistic style, it tends to look like hot garbage years on. But almost a decade later, and this game still holds up really well. Overall, it's just really clean and polished looking, and we have to talk about the creature and set design here because it is sublime. We'll start off with the sets because my god are they impressive. As I mentioned earlier, I really love how unsettling this game is to play through, and it wouldn't be half as good if it wasn't thanks to the set design. Everything is coated in a thick layer of dust that fills the air entirely. Every little room is filled with personality and details to build up both the characters and the locations themselves, and I personally love how gothic and old everything feels. It truly feels like if you sneeze too hard, any location in this game would collapse, making the characters feel unprotected even inside. And we need to discuss the creature design in this game because it is just amazing. The main big bad guy of the game is the Wendigo, a real-world folklore that flourished in indigenous America. Over time, this genuinely creepy creature, originally depicted to be long and slender with skin that barely covered the bones of its body, was more commercialized and was turned into this big deer thing with big antlers, and I cannot stress enough how much I despise this version of the creature. Not only does it just not make sense with the original lore of the being, it's also just painfully unscary and much closer to funny if anything, which is why I'm so glad that the Wendigo depicted here follow much more closely with their indigenous counterparts, being slender with skin barely covering their bones, fangs protruding from her mouth, and hulking far above a normal human. I know this all sounds like personal bias, and if I'm being honest, yeah, it kind of is. But all I'm saying is, would this game be as scary if there were giant deer people running around instead? No! And if you disagree, you're wrong. However, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Something that particularly annoyed me was the motion capture of this title. For the most part, it's fine, sometimes even great, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't look downright awful at times. Sometimes animations will look stiff, play out too slow, play out too fast, or just like, not happen. I mean this especially with the lip sync, which can be just all out of whack at times. It's also distracting how often the frame rate on these models would drop.
Hello? Anyone there? Hello? Please say something if you're out there, please. We need help. Over.
Wow, she's so panicked she's running at 15 frames per second. 8 out of 10. The general look of the game is nice, the set design and the creature design especially is just great, but the performance of the game and shoddy motion capture can really get in the way at times. The score to Until Dawn is absolutely a subtle one, and by subtle, I mean practically non-existent. Thanks to this being a horror game, traditional music is barely ever used, but I will say right now that that is an absolute crime. There are a few times that the game did mix in actual music, nothing too striking, just pianos and violins, but my god did it ever add tremendously to the atmosphere. I know that what they were going for here was a classic teen slasher horror film and whatnot, which is why the game lacking proper score makes even less sense to me. Think of all the classic slashers, Halloween! Psycho! And so many others had such amazing and spooky scores, so why not Until Dawn? Although I will say the opening song is amazing and you need to listen to it right now, please and thank you. Outside of the score, you have the typical horror ambience. You have your jump scare noises, your violin build-ups, everything you'd expect. But what really sticks out to me here beyond even the score is the acting. Because wow, is it ever all over the place. Let's start out with the best here. Brett Dalton as Mike, Nicole Bloom as Emily, and Hayden Panettiere as Sam were particularly great in their roles, but the best out of anybody in the game was Rami Malek. He played Josh in this instance, and he's been in a few things, so let me check. Probably nothing too big. No Time to Die, Mr. Robot, and Bohemian Rhapsody, just to name a few. Just to clarify, he played Freddie freaking Mercury, aka one of the most influential people in history. Only good thing about that movie. So if you ever wanted to see an international icon get sawed in half, this is the best you're gonna get. He does such a great job portraying a character who is blatantly just insane, and anytime he was included in a scene, he stole the spotlight. All of these great performances aside, however, the rest are either fine or absolutely awful. And trust me, when I say awful, I mean awful.
Bert.
Did she just say the word burr?
Where's my sister going?
Oh come on, you didn't even try to hide the audio splices.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. New people. Time to meet and greet.
Who talks like this? These are just a couple of many instances where the performances in this game fall completely short, and it can be quite distracting at times. 7 out of 10. Until Dawn is undoubtedly an amazing experience. It has one of the best stories in a choose-your-own-adventure thanks to how much your choices actually affect the adventure, and it has great visuals and an amazing world to boot. Although it is important to mention that the gameplay outside of the choice making is really lacking and the audio of the game can be less than stellar. Although if you were to ask me, it's more than worth putting up with this thanks to how phenomenal the game as a whole is. Does it hold up? Absolutely, and it really deserves to be more often and fondly looked back on. Without further ado, let's find out the final score. 8.2 out of 10. If you enjoyed the festivities and want to give me a present of my own, please do be sure to like, comment and subscribe. It would really mean a lot. Well, I've been Robbie with an IE. You've been amazing. Have a lovely Christmas day, or just a lovely day if you don't celebrate, and a happy new year.